the phones, we got Aaron Torres joining us, host of the Aaron Torres Sports Podcast, also on Fox Sports Radio and Kentucky Sports Radio. Joins us every Friday here. AT, what's going on in your world these days?
What is going on? Everything, man. I mean, we got basketball coming up. We got football. We got, I see you calling baseball games every once in a while, Phil. It feels like everything's going on. What do you mean what's going on? Everything.
That's exactly right. I'm even dressed like one of our callers today. I am Eddie from Zombieville. Do you dress up, or are you an adult?
The last time I dressed up, great story. It was about 3 years ago. I mean, I just work on Saturday, so I can't really get out. Mm-hmm. But it was peak Harbaugh, like when people actually respected him. Now he wins by 25 points and nobody cares. But this was like year 2. He was still doing all the sleepovers and all that stuff. I pulled off a pretty impeccable Harbaugh, Phil. I'm not going to lie. I'll text you a picture after. I look, and it was before he did the glasses. It was literally probably like 2 weeks before he started the glasses thing. And I had people say, I had no idea that you look like Jim Harbaugh until you dress like Jim Harbaugh. And so it's amazing how much changed. You know, back then it was the khakis. Now he doesn't wear khakis anymore, apparently. He didn't have glasses. So, yeah, that was the last time I dressed up, but it was a great costume. Everybody loved it.
It's funny, yeah. But this is the only time I'm going to do it now, so I'll be an adult the rest of the week.
I brought a glass of milk with me to the party, too. Remember when he was, like, all about drinking milk? Remember those days?
I do remember that. That's right. So yeah. I saw on your picks, you've got the same thought as I do for Arkansas, Texas A&M, which is that don't expect to see a ton of points. But it sounds like you're not quite there with the thought of Arkansas beating Texas A&M on the road. I don't think you were comfortable with even taking Arkansas to cover the spread. So what are your thoughts behind this game, in which it's been historically close, even when Arkansas has been bad? What do you think about this game tomorrow?
Well, I was going to say, Phil, the good news for Arkansas fans, my picks have been terrible lately. So the final score here is probably going to be 45-42, Arkansas win. No, you know, I'll be honest. Like I really, first of all, yeah, I think it's going to be low scoring. It's funny, right? Because, you know, I watch all the games. You know, I'm one of these lucky guys. I don't have to go to a press box every week. I can kind of flip back and forth. And the thing that kind of still stands out to me about the Ole Miss game that I think has been forgotten in the hysteria and the excitement of beating Ole Miss, having a bye week, kind of becoming this hot story in college football, is that, you know, the Arkansas offense couldn't put away Ole Miss. They had, you know, I'm not exaggerating, 10 chances to do it because they forced 7 turnovers and they couldn't put them away. And I remember tweeting about how great the defense was that day, and people, yeah, but what about the offense? And so I do still think the offense is a work in progress. I do still think the defense is ahead. And so because of it, you know, what concerns me is that it's a 20-10 game late. Arkansas is driving, turnover on downs, you know, and A&M puts one in late. But listen, if you made me pick a side, I would definitely take the Arkansas side for the reason that you said, Phil. You know, I always watch this game, and I know it's at Jerry's World usually and all that stuff, but when you're talking about 5 out of the last 6 decided by a touchdown or less, 3 of them have gone into overtime, there's no doubt that this is always a hotly contested rivalry. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if Arkansas won straight up, but, you know, betting the 12 points or whatever it is now, it wouldn't surprise me if Arkansas covered it all.
Speaking to Aaron Torres here on Halftime, AT had some different news come across the way. Let's go to college basketball real quick. And I think this broke right about the time we had you on this past Friday. For those that don't know, give us an update on what's happening with the Arizona men's basketball team with the recruiting violations. And as a second follow-up to that, do you think anything will be done? Because we've seen violations time and time again with LSU, but nothing's really done with that. So kind of keep us up to date with what's happening with Arizona. And do you think something will be done with this?
Yeah, I think something will happen. I don't, you know, the time frame, it's funny, right? Because I'll tell you a funny story, guys. I was even on an Arizona show, and they asked me what's taking so long with all of these investigations. So it's not just fans that aren't involved that are saying, why aren't these teams getting punished? There are a lot of fans even involved in this process that kind of want some, frankly, just some closure to what's going on, Matt. But, so, yeah, I mean, listen, it's not pretty. You know, what I would say about the Arizona case specifically, it's a little bit complicated. We haven't actually seen the notice of allegations yet, and for people who don't know how the process works, the notice of allegations is basically what the NCAA says that you did wrong, We know that Arizona got a notice of allegations. We know that there were 9 alleged violations, but we don't know how many of them exactly are pinned to the head coach, Sean Miller, all that kind of stuff. And so, what I would say is it's still going to be a lengthy process before we find out what happens at Arizona. Some of these cases are further along than others. We talked about Oklahoma State about 3-4 months ago, which already has the NCAA has already made a decision on their case, and Oklahoma State's appealing the final verdict from the NCAA. So that's kind of the deal. And what I would say, because, Matt, I get this question all the time, the reason it's taking so long, I think we have to remember a few things. One, this was a case started by the FBI, and if you remember, there was about a year's time where the NCAA couldn't even start their investigation because the FBI basically said, stand down. We have a criminal case here. We don't care about your little petty NCAA violations. We have a criminal case. So that's one. The pandemic hasn't helped. And then just the volume of cases that kind of got dropped in the laps of the NCAA, one after the other. So we're starting to get closure on all these things. We should have a pretty good idea of what the punishment is at Kansas, I don't know about LSU, Kansas, Louisville, whatever, by the end of this coming season. But this Arizona State one, and there's a few others, Auburn as well, those might drag into next year, and we're talking about 4 full years after the allegations happen. So there's a lot of frustrated people, Matt, that can't figure out what's taking so long.
And when you look over in the Big Ten right now with Big Ten football specifically, and had what we thought was a good week of football, and now you got the cancellations with Wisconsin happening right now, and it seems like the Big Ten's just getting in their own way, but specifically with their requirements for like a 21-day quarantine with everything like that. It's time and time again. I know you've been vocal about this on Twitter, and I agree with everything that you've shared on Twitter, on your Twitter page about what the Big Ten is just kind of getting in their own way. And yet again, AT, they've done it again. And I think it for every other conference that does a 10-day quarantine or whatever it is, it just seems odd with the Big Ten going that route, and they're doing it again here.
Well, a couple things that are really interesting, Matt. One, I think even seeing the Trevor Lawrence news last night kind of highlights how idiotic the Big Ten's policy is because, Trevor Lawrence tests positive on Wednesday. He may be able to play by next Saturday because that'll be a 10-day window that has passed. And Wisconsin, meanwhile, they have guys that might not be able to play not only not this coming Saturday, not next Saturday, but the following Saturday, who tested positive before Trevor Lawrence, some of them I'm sure even asymptomatic. So it's crazy. And what I would say, Matt, I've been starting to really dig into basketball. You guys know I love college hoops. This is going to be, if you think it's bad now, 1 week into football, wait until basketball season because you have, first of all, my understanding is a lot of the if you guys saw the story, I'm sure, but there was a big bubble scheduled for Orlando. And a lot of the problems were that the protocols aren't uniform across college basketball, and specifically there were going to be major problems if there was a positive case on a Big Ten team that was in Orlando for that bubble. But then even outside of that, when all the Wisconsin football news happened, I was actually texting with a basketball coach, and he kind of brought up an interesting point to me, Matt. He said, imagine what we're going to be going through with daily testing where, and this is just a hypothetical, it wasn't a coach from this school, say Rutgers has to fly to Iowa, they get in, they test that morning, and everybody tests positive, they're going to have to fly out and then cancel games, the day of games. And to take it a step further, as we learned with Nick Saban, there are a lot of times, false positives. And so imagine being, again, this is all hypothetical, but say Rutgers flying out to Iowa to play, you get there, you have to cancel, then you go test your guy the next day, and all of a sudden the guy isn't positive, and you have a false positive. And so the Big Ten, you're right, Matt, I have been very vocal about it, is I think they really thought they were doing what's best for the student athletes, but it's so above and beyond that all it's doing is creating unnecessary problems. And I do feel bad for all the players, coaches, parents that fought so hard for this thing. I also feel bad for Nebraska that was ready to play this weekend and now is going to have to sit on the sideline.
AT, we'll leave it there, man. Enjoy the football games this weekend. We'll definitely be digging into some college basketball next week since we're going to be in the start, near the start window, about a month or so. So looking forward to that. Have a great weekend.
Well, there's too much when Arkansas is winning all the time, there's too much football to talk about, guys. Thank you. Have a great day.
No
Thanks,
kidding.
AT.
It was about this time of the year that we would usually be like, all right, football season's over. Let's just move over to basketball, and let's actually just move over to baseball, right? That's the next thing they wanted to do.